Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how I made this unconventional vegetable soup. This vegetable soup is for those of us who do not live in Nigeria, especially those of us who cannot easily access the conventional vegetables used in making Nigerian vegetable soup. So if this sounds like something that might interest you, please keep watching. So the ingredients I use for this recipe are red bell pepper, crayfish, blended onions, Cameroon pepper, hard chicken. Please, if you're going to use chicken for this recipe, ensure you use hard chicken. I also used oven roasted mackerel fish, which I roasted myself in the oven, seasoning cubes, sliced onions, and then I used smoked catfish and Bonga fillet, which are already deboned and washed off camera. I have my palm oil, salt, frozen shrimp, goat meat, and then the vegetables I used for this recipe is kale leaves and spinach leaf. And then I also have the stock fish, which I washed and soaked overnight in the fridge with seasoning cubes, and that is why the color of the water is like that. So I started cooking the meat by first adding my seasoning cubes, salt. I stirred everything together and then added the Cameroon pepper, which I blended off camera. And so I also added onion paste. This onion paste is basically just I blended onions with a little bit of water. I stirred everything together and then covered it to cook for about 8 to 10 minutes. At this point I did not add water, as you guys can see, and you guys can tell with a couple of my videos I don't usually add water at the initial stage when cooking my meat. So while the meat was cooking, I went ahead to blend the red bell pepper as well as yellow habanero pepper. So after 10 minutes I now added water to it to allow it to cook, and then I cooked or dried the pepper mix, the combination of the red bell pepper and the habanero pepper that I blended. I allowed it to dry to be able to use it to cook the food. And to the vegetables, I sliced off camera because it takes a lot of time. That was a lot of vegetable, and I usually pour some hot water on my vegetable to reduce. I like kind of wash it, and I'm pretty sure some of you guys might be thinking, oh, wouldn't all the nutrients go away, or are you not washing away all the nutrients when you are doing that? Absolutely not. I just didn't want excess water in my vegetable, and that's why I usually do this. I usually wash the kale leaves and the spinach with hot water, and I put that ice because the water was so hot that I could not touch it. So that was why I added ice to the bowl. So I usually did this. I did that for the kale leaves and as well as the spinach. And now to the cooking of the vegetable soup. I started with in a heated pot I poured my palm oil and allowed it to heat up. So after heating up the oil, I added my onions and then stirred everything together, and then added the blended pepper mix. And then I added some crayfish and some seasoning cubes and covered to cook. You can actually add salt at this point if you want, but then keep in mind that the meat stock was already well seasoned with enough salt and seasoning, so you have to be very cautious of the amount of salt you're adding, because I was going to use the meat stock to cook the soup anyway, so I was very careful on the amount of salt I'm using, so that was why I didn't add salt. So after adding everything and stirring, I covered to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. So after about 10 to 15 minutes, I added the meat stock and the stockfish. I also added the smoked catfish and bonga fillet, stirred it and allowed to cook for about 10 more minutes, and then the meat and then the vegetables thereafter, as you guys will see in the video. So this was about, I think, 12 minutes or 10 minutes after I now added the meat at this point, and the vegetables. I first added the kale leaves before the spinach, because the spinach is softer than the kale, and I really didn't want it to get so soggy, or I don't know. I love my vegetables still green after cooking the vegetable soup. So the kale leaves is of more harder texture, if that makes sense. So this basically can replace for the ugu and water leaf we use back home in Nigeria. So the water leaf, let's just say the water leaf is the spinach and the kale is the ugu. So this is what the texture actually look like. The kale leaves is similar to the texture of the ugu leaf we have back home, so that was why I added the ugu first before the spinach, and then stirred everything together. So after adding the vegetables, I went ahead to also add the oven roasted mackerel fish, and I did this because I didn't want the fish to pieces inside the soup, and that was why I added it last. I also added the shrimp. The shrimp was already deveined and cooked, so they didn't need any much cooking. They actually needed to steam and they will be okay. So that was why I added these two things last, and stirred everything together. And as you guys can see, even without adding any more water to the vegetable soup, the soup already had water. That's why I usually take some time to squeeze the water out. Even though I wash the vegetable before slicing it, I also go back to use hot water to actually squeeze it out. So here is our vegetable soup, looking so beautiful and very tasty. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Bye.